Let's face it, liberals are offended by everything.
Right on.
And they have zero sense of humor.
Right on.
Huh?
Right on. It's the party game that pokes fun at political correctness and liberalism run amok.
But making fun of them is hilarious for the rest of us.
So play right on and mock the progressive left and their fake news media counterparts in a variety of categories, such as race hustle, the wussification of America, earth snobs, Islam abomination, Hollywood hypocrites, and campus coddling. Feminism follies and rainbow games, and don't forget, millennial entitlement and many others.
Right on, created by conservatives for conservatives.
Because mocking the left feels so right on.
Give the gift of all year long by going to RightOnGame.com.
That's RightOnGame.com. Use promo code MOJO50 for a 10% discount. That's RightOnGame.com, promo code MOJO50 for 10% off.
And while you're there, check out the new drinking game option.
Warning, microaggressions contained in this box. Millennials and snowflakes will be offended by its contents. Retreating to safe spaces are highly recommended.
RightOnGame.com, promo code MOJO50 for 10% off. RightOnGame.com.
You can't handle the truth.
The Denise Simon Experience. The Truth Matrix. Vetting, exposing, drilling down to the truth.
Rolling Thunder, this is Hitman, Seattle. Hitman, this is Rolling Thunder, Seattle.
The Denise Simon Experience. Exposing politics, lies, demagoguery, spin, fraud.
Grid to suppress, Mike Charlie, 4-3-5, 9er 2-1. Grid to mark, Mike Charlie, 4-7-3, 9er, 8-9er, out.
Promoting individual situational awareness. Question, probe, notice, ask why.
Mark smoke on the deck, 2 rounds HEPT, gas TOT 5-3.
And now, the Denise Simon Experience.
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Denise Simon Experience. Very happy that you could be with us. I've got the pleasure of having Howard Altman with us. Howard and I cross paths a lot. We do a lot of direct messaging on Facebook. He's kind enough to respond to my messages. Good job. I hear him on radio, and he's been kind enough to be with us on radio. He is the roving, excellent veteran reporter at the Tampa Bay Times. So thank you, Howard, for being with us.
Oh, my pleasure. These are important topics to talk about.
About a week or so ago, I think you published a piece about a retired Marine colonel that took his life at the Bay Pines VA in St. Pete. And we saw where that had happened, and then you kind of took the ball on this thing because there's another whole twist to it. But we still have not addressed this crisis of suicides, have we?
Well, I think that people are trying. It's a very difficult subject. It's a very difficult issue. We never really know why someone decides to end their life. In this case, it was a situation where Jim Turner, a Marine colonel, retired, a very successful officer, very well known. He'd spent the last 10 years at U.S. Central Command, knew a lot of folks, and was well respected. He ended his life on December 10th at the Bay Pines VA complex. And having followed this issue for a while, I knew this was not the first, and I did some research, and it turns out that this was the 5th time since 2013 that that's happened. Further research showed that this is more than all the other VA hospitals in Florida combined. Period of time.
Was Colonel Turner, was there a physical ailment, or was this more of what they refer to as PTS?
Well, it's a situation where he, according to his family, he had a hard time transitioning out of uniform. As you know, when you put on the uniform, it becomes so much of your persona, and the daily life, military life, is ingrained in your soul, and then you get out and no one's giving you orders. You have to decide how to dress. You have to decide what to do. And even someone as talented as Jim Turner had a very hard time making that transition because the Marines, as his brother said, was his identity. I am a Marine colonel. That is a pretty strong identity. It doesn't exist anymore. You have a hard time finding your true north. And that's a problem faced by a lot of folks. And then you add on issues of post-traumatic stress, and I don't know what his overall health issues were. For a lot of folks, it's traumatic brain injury, other unseen wounds of war like post-traumatic stress when it becomes a disorder. You add all that up, and it results in at least 20 veterans a day taking their own lives, according to VA statistics. And even those are not really completely solid because not every medical examiner's office, keeps records of veteran or military status. We have some of the best medical examiner's offices in the country right here in the Tampa Bay area. We're very lucky.
You mentioned the number 20 a day. That number is still that number. I was just so hoping, certainly in the past couple of years.
Yeah, that was the most recent VA study, and again, it's limited on because not every medical examiner's office keeps track of veteran statuses. So it could be it's most likely more, and it's greater than the civilian population figures. So there's definitely an issue here, and so how is that being treated? Colonel Turner, in his suicide note, blamed the VA. I talked to families of three of the four other veterans who took their lives at Bay Pines in those last 5 years. Two of them one felt that it was a place of safety for his brother, and that's so he felt safe there, and that's why he ended his life there. Another felt that he lived alone and didn't want to die alone and have his body found. So he came to Bay Pines because he knew someone would find it. Yet another veteran's family blamed the lack of proper treatment for his brother's death. And then the family of the fourth person they just couldn't track down.
So what I'm hearing, sadly, Howard, is that the VA is most likely not truly equipped to deal with I guess some underlying, unseen issues. Correct? I mean,
the VA points out that 70% of veterans who die by suicide have not sought out treatment. There are, but there's other issues. It was just recently that the VA accepted bad paper discharge troops into their mental health system. And as you know, that there's this vicious cycle. If you have mental health issues that raise to the point where you get a bad paper discharge, and then you get out and you cannot get the health care that you were promised when you raised your right hand, well, that becomes an issue. And that was recently changed. And that's a move for the much better. Mm-hmm. I hear from many veterans that some of the therapists or some of the intake people don't necessarily, they can't necessarily relate to them. Some of the therapists are younger or don't have any kind of real interactions with the military, so they don't really understand that lifestyle. And I've also heard some great things. One of the biggest frustrations of covering VA is that there's so much that goes wrong, is that you can't always get to cover what's gone right, because there's a lot of, great treatment that takes place. Particularly here, Bay Pines has a very good military sexual trauma treatment program. The James A. Haley has an amazing spinal cord injury center. And so there is some really amazing treatment for veterans, but in all that, sometimes it gets lost in the sea of bad news and frankly bureaucratic ineptness at best. A year ago, I had tried to find out how many veterans were taking their lives at VA facilities because they'd covered the issue and was curious. And I filed a Freedom of Information request. The VA denied it, but in doing the story about James Turner, found out that they only started keeping track system-wide a month after they denied my FOIA. And so when I asked them, was there a connection? I still haven't heard back. So I think it's more than just mere coincidence that they started keeping track of this after they denied my FOIA request. And by the way, there was 19 since October of 2017. So
I was going to ask you the date.
I mean, but what does that mean? What does it kind? And it's a very small percentage of those veterans who take their lives, but any information that helps understand the why part of it should be accessible and used to figure out, well, how do we make this better? And it wasn't until, I asked them that they even began keeping track, it's infuriating, frankly, for those people who struggle.
Care of the veterans, we're also desperate for them to have the pledges and the promises honored to them when they raise their right hand. And that doesn't stop, begin and end at the Pentagon. It certainly goes over to the VA. The VA has been there a very long time. It should, all services should be a well-oiled machine by now. And I'm not blaming, because all VAs are not equal. Some of them are just outstanding. I've heard some fabulous stories, and others, one or two people, as you say, they may fall through the cracks here. And those are the ones that, make the news, where the, good stories are not necessarily making the news. But I'm struck by the point that you had a paragraph that says they had a budget of almost 18 million for suicide prevention and mental health outreach. And that wasn't spent.
Well, there's a follow-up story to this. The GAL reported that the VA had this outreach program where they were allocated $6.2 million to, buy ads to do outreach for folks who are struggling and need want to spread a message. You're not alone and there's help. They only spent $57,000 out of that $6.2 million. That's less than 1%. And that, that is pretty outrageous. And it was another situation where there's been so much change at the leadership level at the top, and also in lower levels, that things could not really get done properly. The Wilkie has promised, the Secretary of VA, Secretary's promised that money will be spent in the future. We'll see what happens. We got to remember that the VA as a system is extremely overwhelmed. You have so many people that have served that are promised and are due services, and then you've got and so what you have is a medical system and also a benefit system. But let's just look at the medical system first. It's struggling to cope with the current wars and all those folks who are suffering from current maladies. But I also talk to folks who are still trying to get help from World War II and can't. You've got a system where, say you were in the Navy for 2 years in 1978, and you get in a motorcycle accident in 1988, and you go to the VA and they take care of you. And then you've got the Agent Orange NEMR claims, and the VA's got to take care of that. Then there's, all the Vietnam War veterans and their issues beyond just the Agent Orange. And you've got newer claims like Gulf War syndrome, and you've got Camp Lejeune, you've got issues of burn pits, all very real. And so the VA is overwhelmed as a system to try to deal with all of this. And then there are built-in metrics of success that don't always, and this is sort of more to the benefit side of the house. These metrics for success are such that the easiest cases are the ones that get approved. The harder cases, well, we've got all this and we have to look at so many different maladies, so we're going to just deny it. And then it goes into this loop of, referrals and then appeals. And that could take up to 5-6 years or longer. I've seen this. So you've got people who are dying waiting to get benefits. So it's a system and the metrics of success keep that flowing. So you've got a very overstressed system, despite the good intentions of many people and the skills of many medical folks. It's a system that isn't always working.
When you wrote the pieces about this, have you had people necessarily that have reached out to you? Great
deal of the Jim Turner story was probably one of the most popular stories I've written this year. I think it's overwhelmingly the most popular story this year. I just took a look. It was shared over 79,000 times on Facebook. It's had several, about more than 300,000 or so page views. I've gotten a ton of emails and phone calls. I haven't even been able to respond to all. If anybody's listening, I apologize, because so many people have so many stories to tell about their experiences with VA. And I've got some follow-ups that I'm looking to now to, shine a light on a problem that still exists.
I'm going to ask a bizarre question because I have a sense that I'm not even sure that there is an answer to this, but does the VA, do they have virtually every living veteran? I mean, is every living veteran's name in a system someplace?
You would think so. I don't really have the answer to that. I'm guessing no, because that's a big number. And don't forget, there have been problems with the Pentagon computer system not communicating properly with the VA system.
At all.
And
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a real problem. I did a story once about a Green Beret, one of the first guys into Afghanistan, had a great career. And when it was over, he was trying to get his benefits. He could not even get a rating until I made a phone call to the VA and said, "Oh, by the way, yeah, that's right, we're going to get you your rating." And he got his 100%. That's an insane way to do business. You should not have to rely on a reporter to help get you your benefits. You should get those. And again, it goes to the issues of lack of communications between the two systems, and also the metrics of success. He had a number of different health issues as a result of his spending a lifetime with the Green Berets. And so it was, somewhat of a complex issue. So they just ignored it or didn't give him his rating.
You may hear this too, as I do, but I know there's an awful lot of veterans that they say that they don't know about all of their benefits and all of the services. Can that be accurate?
True. Yeah, no, it is. I think part of it is that the end game for troops as they separate, the TAPS program has some issues. It's kind of a fire hose at the end of a career, and getting all this information it's just mind-boggling. I've sat in those classes, and there's a lot. And
really?
So the military could probably do a better job throughout the course of service member's life in uniform to let them know what benefits exist at the end of that time in service. But at some points you've got to be able to figure it out yourself. I mean, there's a level of self-reliance too. You can't blame everything in the VA or the military. The information is really readily accessible. Just if you have a computer, although I must say that I have a lot of readers who are not computer friendly or computer literate. So some of the older veterans might have trouble accessing some of that information.
I would say you could put this thing on a CD-ROM and mail it to everybody that gets out and say, here it is. You need to watch this and take notes. These are the things that that are available to help you make the transition to civilian life. Certainly in the case of Colonel Turner, and these are your benefits. These are where the laws are. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
that does exist. They do that in the TAPS program, and not everybody. Despite even you get the best run program, there are going to be people who just cannot make that transition, and it's not the fault of anybody other than the situation. When you're in a situation where it is constant levels of stress and behavior expected, and then you get out to the so-called real world, the civilian world, where 99% of folks have not been in uniform. It is going to be a challenge, even to describe, say, if you're in the Army, describe what your MOS is to a civilian job recruiter. You could be the most qualified person in the world. And there's an information gap. So there's been some interesting legislation introduced by Bill Rackus and Chris and others to break some of that down by, for instance, having certain licenses or requirements be automatic because you've already done it in the military. Same thing for spouses, because that you can't just look at these issues in terms of just the service person. You've got to also look at the entire family picture. because if a spouse can't find a job where their spouse is working in the military, that's going to add to stress on the family, and that's going to create tensions. What happens so often is that because people move every 2 years, their skills to the spousal skills are not necessarily translated. So they've got to, as they move from state to state, they've got to get a whole new set of licenses or
resume,
certificates or whatever. And there should be ways to, again, allow their skills to be translated and have some kind of acknowledgement through, in these processes that, okay, I have these skills, I've done this experience, so I qualify for a certificate or a license in nursing or whatever that is because I've done it. And so anything along those lines to help reduce the stress will go a long way towards helping to reduce the number of suicides, because it's not an isolated thing. There's a lot of components that go into somebody's decision to do that.
In a couple minutes that we have left here, Howard, we've got all these outside organizations, where the retireds can go hang out. I mean, there's hundreds of them. I would think that there would be a larger role that they would necessarily be playing if there are gaps in the VA service, right?
Maybe not. You've got to remember that a lot of the current the veterans of the current conflicts don't like going to the VFW or AMVETS, and frankly, a lot of the older veterans don't necessarily like the younger veterans. And I get this all the time. Whenever everyone explains, well, why is he complaining? Back in my day, you gotta remember when back in their day in World War II, for instance, 12% of the country served in uniform. So it wasn't like everybody had a blue star in their window. Everybody knew someone that was deployed. Everybody had skin in the game. Now, very few people really understand what it's like to serve the country and those sacrifices. So when someone comes back into that world, it's very difficult. And the other issue is that troops now will survive wounds that they would not have in
otherwise.
In World War II. Let's face it, we own the skies, we own the battle space, we can bring in helos, get folks, to a medical center or medical services within that golden hour. Even in Vietnam, there was a struggle because helos were getting shot down left and right. So the survivability has increased. As a result, the wounds are greater, the struggles are often greater. And so you've got these problems that a lot of the older veterans just don't appreciate. I do a lot of public speaking and all when I go to some of the senior citizens places, like, why don't veterans now? And it's like, I just have to explain what I just described to you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Howard Altman, our great reporter from the Tampa Bay Times, for your time in explaining this, and we appreciate your continued effort.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Keep reading at the Tampa Bay Times, TBO.com, TampaBay.com, and I'll be doing some more stuff on this subject in the future.
Excellent.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. We're coming your way, ladies and gentlemen.
Bye-bye.
Stay with us.
This is Don Newen with Cowboy Logic Radio, and I carry my Sig Sauer 9mm every day. It's like a MasterCard. I never leave home without it.
And I'm glad you do, given that you work in Atlanta every day, talking about a rough place to work.
Well, Donna, I would say that most of our beloved Cowboy Logic Radio listeners not only own, but carry their weapons too. It's just the thing to do nowadays.
So do I, Don. And we need to share with our listeners a fantastic weapons company, Tar River Arms. Oh, and I should mention, they were founded by United States Marine. Enough said, right? Badass-o-matic.
TarRiverArms.com. That's TAR Riverarms.com.
Tar River Arms, America's first virtual gun store, makes it easier and more comfortable than ever to purchase your firearm online. And through 3D interactive experiences, you can even view and inspect that gun you're purchasing.
They even have weekly specials that eliminate shipping and broker fees, Donna. Great guns, great prices, and great service. And remember, Tar River Arms is veteran-owned and operated.
Don, would you expect anything less from a Marine?
No, ma'am.
At TarRiverArms.com, you can search by caliber, manufacturer, and firearm types. Revolvers, semi-automatic pistols, including your SIG, Don, short barrel rifles, long rifles, shotguns, and NFA silencers. They even have very hard to find products such as the H&K MP5. Totally badass.
Tar River Arms have some of the coolest high-end tactical weapons made, all at great prices.
TarRiverArms.com, U.S. Marine owned and operated.
Hoorah!
Hey gang, did you know that the big cellular companies fund liberal causes and candidates, not Patriot Mobile?
You're correct, Donna. Did you know that the big mobile companies have spent over $100 million to elect liberal candidates? They also fund liberal causes, agendas, and organizations such as Planned Parenthood, not Patriot Mobile.
Here's how it works. You, our beloved Cowboy Logic Radio listeners, pay your cell phone bill every month. Then Big Mobile takes your money and gives millions to liberal candidates who authorize subsidies to provide free cell service, Obama phones, to do-nothings who vote for more liberals so they can keep getting more free stuff that you pay for. Not Patriot Mobile.
So here's how you fight back. Switch to Patriot Mobile with unlimited plans starting as low as $20 a month and stop funding the big cellular companies.
Feel good about funding the right agendas. Every dollar you spend makes a statement. What message are you sending?
And it's easy to switch. You can even keep your same number, and they've got great nationwide coverage that includes Double D Ranch.
Visit them online at patriotmobile.com or call them at 1-800-A-PATRIOT.
And for any of the guilt-ridden liberals, that's 1-800-272-8746.
Created by conservatives for conservatives. Their name says it all. Patriot Mobile. Do it now. patriotmobile.com or 1-800-A-PATRIOT.
Ladies and gentlemen, what message are you sending?
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for hanging with us here on the Denise Simon Experience. Want to give a very special welcome to Ryan Mauro. Ryan's been on our show a couple of times, but Ryan, every time you come on, you've kind of outdone yourself. And I would argue that this is I don't know that you realize this project that you have done is probably a lot of the answers to billions of people worldwide that are desperate for some real answers. And Ryan is the producer of, I don't know, I might get this title wrong, but Sinai in Arabia, but it's really got a couple other, Mountain of Moses kind of titles, right?
Right. So the name, if you're searching on YouTube, is Finding the Mountain of Moses.
Okay. Now, Ryan, this was did we have some rabbi that helped you out on this that just kind of triggered your interest and you wanted to do this documentary?
I was interested in this theory about Mount Sinai, where Moses got the Ten Commandments, being in Saudi Arabia since I was probably 14, 15, somewhere around there. That's because I had just become a Christian. I didn't grow up in church. But there was this academic consensus that the entire Exodus story was a myth, or at least greatly exaggerated. And to be honest with you, I couldn't find much evidence out there that was persuasive enough to justify the story as being historical. And so this is a problem that a lot of people have grappled with.
Yes.
And I read about how a small handful, just like maybe 4 or 5 Americans, since the 80s, had been trying to go to Saudi Arabia and getting arrested, trying to visit what they thought was Mount Sinai and other associated evidences that would help verify the book of Exodus and the stories about what happened. But the Saudis kept arresting them, and they kept confiscating their equipment, confiscating their evidence. And so really all that you had was some grainy videos and grainy photos that had leaked out because it was a long time ago, so the quality wasn't that great. And I was just really fascinated with this theory, and then basically a miracle happened, and I had an opportunity to go, and I went to Saudi Arabia over the past 2 years, 3 times, in order to film and get footage that's never been taken before of these different places where the locals say Moses and the Israelites came to after the Red Sea crossing. And what I saw was it just lines up with the biblical story so powerfully that I'm just so excited to have this out on the internet.
All right, well, I get to ask the obvious question. How come you weren't arrested?
I don't really answer that question because it took a lot of careful planning. You'll see some of what went on when I was in Saudi Arabia in the video when people search it. But basically, the Saudis do fence off these areas. They do have police patrolling these areas. And so unless you get special access somehow, you're not going to be able to go and see this very powerful evidence showing that the Exodus story actually happened. But local Saudis will come right up to you and just say, hey, did you know that Moses and the Yahud, the Jews, were here? Let me show you exactly where these people were. And they're very proud of that.
And so you would say then there's this centuries-old history that it seemed like the local Saudis know, but the kingdom and the royalty they know it, but they're a little embarrassed by it. They don't want it out there, correct?
I don't know if they're embarrassed by it or if even the entire Saudi government knows about it or believes in it. It's kind of hard to figure out, but it's definite that some elements at high levels of the Saudi government believe that Mount Sinai is in Saudi Arabia. There's a specific mountain, it's called Jabal Makla, that the locals refer to as the Mountain of Moses. And that's where you'll find all of this archaeological evidence that we'll be talking about. And the Saudis fence it off and mark it as an archaeological sign. I mean, you go there and it's in English and Arabic saying this is a sensitive archaeological site. You may not go any further. And so they know something special is there. Whether the entirety of the Saudi government knows about it, believes in it, we're not sure. But local Saudis certainly believe in it. And even Muslims from around the world will come to some of these sites that we believe are related to Moses, such as the most popular one being the well, where it's believed locally it was the land of Jethro. And there's an old well there that's also sealed off by a fence, where Muslims come and they believe that is the well where Moses met the daughters of Jethro and then ended up marrying one of them.
Did you, Ryan, in your visits to do this project, did you have some kind of a checklist that you wanted to, get to these particular pieces of the stories, and that you just kind of went down a checklist, or were you just on a wider quest and then things just sort of fit into place? How'd that work?
I was intensely interested in this theory without 100% signing on to it, so I knew it really well, and I knew roughly where some of these sites would be. So I did have a checklist when I went over there, and the way I was able to go in and travel with an assistant who was familiar with the areas, that obviously greatly helped. But basically, and we go through each of these in the film, I start off with where we think the Red Sea crossing happened, which is not in the place people have been looking. That's really the overall thesis here, is that the reason you haven't found evidence of the Exodus isn't that the Exodus didn't happen. It's just we've been looking in the wrong spot all these years. Mm-hmm. And it makes sense why we haven't been looking in the right spot, because the traditional Mount Sinai, that tradition is so strong, and people kind of reflexively assume that it must be accurate because, everyone says it's Mount Sinai, even though it doesn't really make sense where it's placed. And Saudi Arabia being a theocratic state that keeps outside influence out there, that explains why the world hasn't really heard about this until now. But basically we go from where we think the Red Sea crossing happened. Saudi police showed up and kind of stopped us there. But there's an underwater land bridge that goes from Egypt into Saudi Arabia where we think the crossing happened, which is just amazing. So if the waters parted, there would have been this land path under the water that the Israelites could have taken, which makes the story feasible, because if you don't have that land path there, then they just fall. If it's too steep, if there's no land, then they drown. All these little logistical things have to line up if you take the story very seriously.
You had to be in a sense of wonder with every step that you took, right? I mean, it's kind of daunting. I mean, you felt kind of small in the whole scheme of things going back so far in history, right?
Oh, yeah. And what's really amazing is that because Saudi Arabia is a theocratic country and they project outside influence, so much of this is preserved. So when we go to what we think is the real Mount Sinai, It's just amazing because you drive and you have to drive a while into the middle of the desert, in the middle of nowhere to get there. But then the plain is flat and it opens up, and you can actually see how millions of Israelites could have fit there and safely camped. And the mountains wrap around that camping area, so it makes sense that, all right, well, God would put the Israelites right here because by the mountains, it's flat land, it's a huge piece of land, and not every mountain has a plain that you can camp on like that in front of it. And it's just astonishing to look at. So yeah, you feel very small, you feel very I felt very unworthy because it's like, I'm not really the right guy to be doing this. I still don't really get it. I'm hoping that this video I put out, if it goes viral and it really gets out there, that then maybe I'll better understand why all this happened. But I mean, I'm not an archaeologist or a pastor or a scientist. Like, it doesn't quite make sense. But I had this opportunity to go and explain what I saw and get video of it, and it's just amazing. There's evidence of the golden calf worship that went on, that famous story from the Exodus. There's what appears to be the remains of the altar that Moses built right at the foot of the mountain, just like the Bible describes, along with the 12 pillars representing the 12 tribes of Israel. There's a match for Elam, which the book of Exodus says Moses and the Israelites stopped at on the way to Mount Sinai, where there were 70 palms and 12 wells, and the 12 wells are still
That was remarkable.
There. Yeah, it's just, the list goes on and on. The one that people talk about the most, because it's just so visually stunning, is the rock where Moses struck it. Yeah, the split rock where Moses strikes it.
It's big.
It's massive, and I never imagined that story that way. Most people I talk to haven't either. It's like, you read the story, it's like, all right, so Moses struck a rock, you're imagining something on the ground, and water comes out, and you're imagining like a spring out of the ground. But along this path to what we think is Mount Sinai, there's this massive rock on top of like a 100-foot hill, and then the rock itself is like maybe 40 to 60 feet high.
Yeah.
And it's split, and it just dominates the landscape, and you can see it within the split and then below the split where the rocks are smooth, as if there were streams
water
coming down out of that rock, forming a lake at the bottom, which is, it's just crazy to look at. And the areas around it aren't like that. So you drive, it's all bumpy and jagged, and then all of a sudden the rock is smooth, like there were streams coming down from this split rock.
Ryan, what was your team? I mean, in making these trips, was your team just as in a sense of overwhelm and wonder as we are if when we watch the film? I mean, when you
so. In fact, split rock, like that's even more powerful when you see it. You know, like there's no special effects or any gaming around with the camera angles to make it look more beautiful or more powerful or larger. The split rock particularly, I was actually disappointed with the video imagery because it still doesn't do it justice, but that's the case with all of these things. Everything's just much bigger. If this is what the Bible describes, and I think the video makes a strong case that it is, everything is just much bigger than you imagine when you read the book of Exodus.
I mean, so you had a checklist, but you're not a student of the Bible, as you know, a scholar, maybe I should say, of the Bible and all of its histories. So you didn't have any real preconceived notions. You just had a checklist, and if you got to check off, 30 things out of 100, that was a major success because you filled in a lot of gaps. I mean, this is a visual, and there had to be quite a sense of wonder. And I mean, I've watched the thing a couple of times and just kind of sit back and go, I'm not even sure I know how to process this. I'm not even sure how you could process it.
I'm still processing it because I remember things that I forgot because you're somewhat nervous when you're there. You're making sure that no one that's hostile is coming up to you, which we did have happen. And you're trying to take it all in while thinking about filming and what angles you want. So it's not like we get to just sit there and absorb it all. And so I keep remembering things, and there's stuff that we haven't released, but I don't know if wonderment's even the right word for it. I'm trying to figure out how to articulate it. It's sort of like, it's a feeling of an epiphany going off, in your brain, but also you're in amazement that it's all there, but that also you get to be there. I mean, it's hard to explain how few people have ever gotten to these sites in Saudi Arabia, and it's at this particular time in the history of mankind. It's almost as if everything was timed, where once our technology got advanced enough that we'd have the internet, and we would have drones, and we'd have small cameras, and our faith would be probably weaker than it has been in history, that technology, that timing would then allow us to see things like these archaeological sites. Like, it all seems, in terms of timing, just very calibrated from a spiritual perspective. And I know some people may say that sounds crazy, but that's just how I feel. Now, even if you take that away, I think that atheists can watch this video and still come away with an appreciation for it from an archaeological standpoint and say, yeah, the story that we thought was myth has to at least have a heavy grounding in history. It wasn't just made out of thin air. Now, people may say, oh, I don't think God was involved in it. They may pick and choose, what they want to take away from it. But it becomes pretty hard to argue that this story is completely made up and the locations that they talked about were completely made up, because in this part of Saudi Arabia and Egypt as well, if you follow the instructions in the Bible, the little details that you tend to skip because you have no way to relate to it, but it reads like a map. It says they moved east here, then they moved south, they camped by the sea. If you map all of that out, and anyone can do it, this is what you run into. You just had to discard that traditional thinking and assuming that we've figured everything out already.
Did you happen to come across any kind of artifacts?
We did.
Really?
There's a lot of evidence of human activity that's hard to date because we're not scientists, but around the Split Rock, around all these areas. But the artifacts that we found that are really hard to argue with are these inscriptions that, according to two experts we talked to, are Proto-Hebrew around the Split Rock area and around what we think is Mount Sinai. And it includes a lot of them have this sandal, and some of them have a foot in the sandal with Hebrew writing to the side that means the sole of your foot. Now, what does that mean? What it probably means is that back then people would have tribal signs, and they would mark a certain area saying it's either theirs or don't come further because there's a people here and you don't really want to mess with us, just so you know our population is here. And we think that is the Hebrew tribal sign, basically, because the Bible says that God told the Israelites wherever the sole of your foot touches is going to be your land, at least at that moment. And so you have that all over the Split Rock area and near Mount Sinai, and that's really amazing. There are some inscriptions that one expert interpreted to actually be referring to Yahweh, the Hebrew name for God. There's inscriptions we found that appear to be referring to Rephidim, which is the area where the Split Rock incident is said to have occurred, according to the book of Exodus.
What has been the reaction of those that have viewed the film so far? Are they, have you met with some critics of this thing, or are they just giving you the high five, this is amazing, or are you getting both?
This hasn't really gotten the attention that it deserves. Online, there's some other videos that are dated that have a high number of views, and so there's some familiarity with the broad thesis, but seeing it like this, and seeing it explained like this, that's never been done before. So we still need this to get out there in order to get those types of diverse reactions. Right now, it's like 95% is all people just being amazed by it. Of those that have criticized it are people that are just holding on to critics of the theory that Mount Sinai is in Saudi Arabia, and those criticisms have been there for years and addressed. I mean, it's nothing new. So in a few of the websites that have covered this, where they've cited, one or two different scholars who say, I disagree that Mount Sinai could be in Saudi Arabia, I think it's this other location, just know that all of those criticisms have already been answered. Otherwise, I wouldn't have taken this trip over there.
Who is Rabbi Alexander Houle?
He's got actually a very good book, even if I disagree with him about Mount Sinai. I forget the name of the book, but his book is actually...
Searching for Sinai.
Yes, that just came out, I think, this year. And
Yeah,
he
last
believes Mount
year, yeah.
Sinai is in Saudi Arabia, but he points to a different mountain. And a member of my team did go visit that mountain after that book came out and left and was not impressed with what he found. So if you compare the evidence for that mountain to this one in Saudi Arabia, where you have so much that lines up with the biblical account, I think it's an easy choice.
Has anybody in Israel reached out to you on this film and kind of validated some things or wanted to provide some extra context or notes or anything like that?
Israelis I've talked to about it, but just average Israelis. I haven't had any type of clerical or political outreach about this. But again, it's only been out a week. The reason it's gotten a lot of views right now is because Glenn Beck said the video is phenomenal, and he actually said it's a game changer for mankind. And that he didn't believe it at first. When I sent Glenn the bullet points and saying, hey, this is what I've got, he initially was really dismissive. In fact, there was a delay in me hearing back from him, but then he saw the video and he was blown away by it and then did his own research. So there was a delay between when I reached out to Glenn Beck because he thought, no, if this is all true, we'd all know about it by now. But him and his team went through it and it felt comfortable basically advertising it for me on his radio show. And he called it a game changer for mankind, a game changer for people's faith on the individual level. So I'm hoping this really gets out there. And honestly, if people were to somehow debunk this theory, I'd be thankful for it because I just want to know the truth.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I'm not an archaeologist or a pastor or like an author who has a career betting on the fact that this is the real Mount Sinai, which I think makes me a bit more objective because if I was proven wrong about all this, I would sleep fine at night. I'd be a little disappointed, but it wouldn't be that big of a deal to me. My credibility is in national security, something completely different. So right. I'm open to everything and it wouldn't affect me. Whereas other people, if you're a scholar and you write a book saying Mount Sinai is in Jordan or Egypt or whatever, man, your credibility is on the line now. Your entire ego, your identity, everything's on the line with that. So we shouldn't expect those people, even if they're smarter and know more than me, to be really open-minded, There's a lot riding on them being correct.
Have you made a trip over to Google Earth and see what you can't, see what the satellite photos necessarily show of this entire region?
Oh yeah, for sure.
And what is that kind of validate everything as well?
Well, you can use Google Earth to better understand the paths and why the Bible would say that Moses and the Israelites went in this direction or that direction, because you can look at the valley. Basically, what the book of Exodus is describing is the structure of the valleys, and you just wouldn't think of it. But it all makes sense why the Bible would say they go from Mara to Elam, and they go in this direction, they camp here, and then they camp there, and then they go to the next spot. And it all seems kind of random, but then you look at the shape of the valleys in northwestern Saudi Arabia, and that's just the direction that they go. It makes total sense. So Google Earth is good for that. Google Earth, you can see some of the blackened top of what we think is Mount Sinai, and there's a big debate about
that
whether
was
the
remarkable.
blackened top is.
All right.
Yeah, it's visually amazing. There's some people that say that that's just a natural formation and don't read too much into it, but then there's other people that say, well, it's kind of a big coincidence that the top of what you think is Mount Sinai is black. It is a very distinct black top, and then it extends beyond that mountain, but right at that spot, it's really distinct. And maybe that's evidence of God descending upon the mountain in the form of a fire, like the Bible says. Some people disagree with it. Some people agree with it. Until we get more testing of rocks and that sort of thing, we're not going to really know. But I'll tell you, at the very least, as a believer in God, even if that's a natural thing not connected to the phenomenon described in the book of Exodus, that's there at least for a visual representation, so we can visualize it.
You could probably reach out to, I would say, the geospatial piece of the military, and they may have some more higher resolution type satellite images of this region. It is a daunting region, isn't it? There's just nothing there. I mean, it's just like earth and rock, isn't it?
In that specific spot, yes, but in Saudi Arabia, in the northwestern area, there is a lot more. where you can see modern society, like near the city of Tabuk. There's a lot of engineers. That's like a modern city. And Saudi Arabia wants to build this project that they call NEOM, which would be New York City except 33 times the size of New York City, and with the modernity and quality of Dubai. I mean, it'll be the world's most grand city. And right in the middle of it is Mount Sinai and all of this stuff that we found. So part of the reason we made this video was to say that construction needs to be modified. Yeah, it needs to be modified. And some Saudis are mad at me saying, oh, well, you're trying to stop our grand city. No, I'm not. I'm saying you should modify it. I'm not even saying that the fenced-off archaeological sites will be destroyed necessarily, even though the Saudis have done that type of thing in the past, even to their own Islamic sites. So it's fair to question whether they will just destroy stuff. But the areas around the fenced-off parts, that's where the Israelites camped. That's where the Israelites traveled to, according to this theory. We think the entire plain and the areas around those fenced-off archaeological sites should be preserved and not built on.
Well, that would help for their tourism, if nothing else. I mean, if they want any tourism.
That's our argument. Yeah, that's our argument. So on Twitter, some Saudis are getting mad at me. And I'm like, look, I'm trying to make you guys trillions of dollars. Like,
by default.
Right. I mean, if we succeed in convincing them to preserve these areas, then it'll be well worth the money. And really, you feel like you're in the Exodus when you're there. And I'd hate to see the Saudis do to those areas what the Egyptians did to the Great Pyramids of Giza, because you go
digging
there,
it all over the place. Yeah,
there's like a swimming pool practically next to the pyramids. Like,
I've been there. I know. Here, ride my camel.
Right?
Yeah, and give me something American. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, we don't want that to happen. We want it to be an isolated area so people feel like they're transporting back in time and can imagine being with Moses and the Israelites, because that's what it feels like when I'm there.
We absolutely need to do that. We want truly some tangible stuff to kind of put things in context and perspective, and I think that you have delivered that in a big, huge way. Ladies and gentlemen, I invite you to go to the website SinaiInArabia.com. Please don't cheat yourself and not do this. Ryan needs this out. We all need this out. Ryan, thank you so much. I'm gonna tap you on the shoulder here again soon, because I want to know what the reactions are the more we advertise this. So well done, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, more coming your way, so stay with us.
Hey, Donna, Cowboy Logic Radio listeners love law enforcement.
That's right, Don. And Charity Magnets designs and produces beautiful, high-quality products for law enforcement supporters and enthusiasts.
They've got very impressive honor badge car magnets.
CharityMagnets.com.
They've got license plate honor badges.
CharityMagnets.com.
They've got cool keychains and license plate frames.
CharityMagnets.com. I'm on their website right now, and this is my favorite, the Honor Badge dog tag. Look at that little doggy with the dog tag. He's so cute.
Donna, we're trying to do an ad read, and you're playing around on their website, which happens to be CharityMagnets.com.
But he's so cute.
Donna.
Okay. Hey, this is huge, too. For each sale, a donation will be made to Cops for Kids with Cancer. Cops for Kids with Cancer has given more than $2.5 million in donations. Yes.
Become a Blue Honor Foundation member today. Like Donna is doing right now, go to CharityMagnets.com.
But he's so cute. All right, use the promo code MOJO for $5 off any purchase. I know you all love and support our brave law enforcement professionals and their families. Show your support today by going to CharityMagnets.com and check out that little puppy. He's so cute. Hey, Don, can we go to the pound, get another rescue dog, please? Pretty
No,
please?
Donna, no. 5 rescue dogs are enough, but I'm going to CharityMagnets.com, and I'm making some purchases right now.
Become a Blue Honor Foundation member today. Enter Mojo at checkout and get $5 off. CharityMagnets.com.
Let's face it, liberals are offended by everything.
Right on.
And they have zero sense of humor.
Right on.
Huh?
Right on. It's the party game that pokes fun at political correctness and liberalism run amok.
But making fun of them is hilarious for the rest of us.
So play right on and mock the progressive left and their fake news media counterparts in a variety of categories, such as Race hustle, the wussification of America, Earth snobs, Islam abomination, Hollywood hypocrites, and campus coddling. Feminism follies and rainbow games, and don't forget, millennial entitlement and many others.
Right On, created by conservatives for conservatives.
Because mocking the left feels so right on.
Give the gift of all year long by going to RightOnGame.com.
That's RightOnGame.com. Use promo code MOJO50 for a 10% discount. That's RightOnGame.com, promo code MOJO50 for 10% off.
And while you're there, check out the new drinking game option.
Warning, microaggressions contained in this box. Millennials and snowflakes will be offended by its contents. Retreating to safe spaces are highly recommended.
RightOnGame.com, promo code MOJO50 for 10% off. RightOnGame.com.
You can't handle the truth.
The Denise Simon Experience. The Truth Matrix. Vetting, exposing, drilling down to the truth.
Rolling Thunder, this is Hitman, Seattle. Hitman, this is Rolling Thunder, Seattle.
The Denise Simon Experience. Exposing politics, lies, demagoguery, spin, fraud.
Grid to suppress, Mike Charlie, 4 tree 5, 9er 2-1. Grid to mark, Mike Charlie, 4-7 tree 9er, 8-9er, out.
Promoting individual situational awareness. Question, probe, notice, ask why.
Lock smoke on the deck, 2 rounds AGPT, cast TOT 5-3.
And now, the Denise Simon Experience.
And thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for hanging with us here on the Denise Simon Experience. I got the distinct pleasure of having Michael Ingmire with us. And Michael's been a busy man here. And thank you for being so busy. You're doing some very good work out there. And I'm very happy that you reached out to be on the Denise Simon Experience. So with that, Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. Well, I'm ready for 2018 to go, I won't go into personal stratas. You know me. We're just, we'll just say it's been a daunting year.
Indeed, it has.
Politeness, yeah. And for the American people, it's been a daunting year. We're dealing with the same old.
Indeed, we are. I want to talk about.
Go ahead. No, I'm sorry. You.
I actually want to talk about Benghazi here a little bit. Yeah. And for some new listeners, would you explain your relationship to Sean Smith?
Yeah, Sean was my nephew by his marriage to my niece. Okay, and he's an Air Force veteran who got a job as an IT information officer for the State Department. He served under Colin Powell. He served under Condoleezza Rice. He served in some dangerous stratas during that period of time. Places like Baghdad and stuff like that. But he was protected. Then he served under the Obama administration. And let me give you just a little background. Sean loved Obama. Sean thought Obama was everything that Obama said he was. And he wasn't protected. In fact, I think Sean, Ambassador Stevens, Glenn Doherty, and Tyrone Woods were treated like collateral damage. And I really hope that President Trump, and there's been a big push by Dinesh D'Souza on this one also, but I've been pushing it for over a year and a half. I would really like to see a document released called PSD-11, because that's sort of like the foundation of Benghazi. PSD-11 stands for Presidential Study Directive 11, literally number 11. It was issued by the Obama White House in August of 2010, and allegedly this document details Obama's desire to change over the leaders of North African nations like Egypt, Tunisia, and Libya to a more Muslim Brotherhood-friendly strata. Okay? And that's the start of it, because part of the problem was that it really is economic as well as agenda. In other words, Muammar Gaddafi was seeking to go to a gold standard. In other words, he no longer wanted to accept American dollars or French francs for Libyan gold. So therefore, he had to be eliminated. He was eliminated. The leader of Egypt was eliminated, and not necessarily murdered in the manner that Gaddafi was, but he was taken out of power. Same thing with Tunisia. So they basically changed they did what I would call an illegal regime change, where they decided that we want these people to fit our modus operandi. So then they install Ambassador Stevens as the ambassador from the United States to Libya. Ambassador Chris Stevens was apparently a pretty friendly, passionate guy, but I think he was used. I think he was really used, because ultimately they decided, after they got rid of Gaddafi, they said, well, we want to start gathering the weapons that we gave these people, because they provided to the insurgent rebels who deposed Gaddafi in 2011 400 tons of weapons, an unconscionable amount of weapons. And they decided that they were going to do a project where they were going to start gathering weapons. They created a CIA annex that was about 10 minutes away from the diplomatic outpost that Chris Stevens was at. And I think they were trying to do a strata of removing weapons from Libya, sending them to Turkey as a stop-off point, and with the ultimate destination being Syria. On September 11th, 2012, a group of Al-Qaeda-based rebels and their offshoot, of Ansar al-Sharia attacked the diplomatic outpost. My nephew Sean Smith and Ambassador Stevens were killed in the first wave of the attack. There's a second wave that happened on the early morning hours of September 12th, 2012, where ex-SEALs and CIA operators, Glenn Doherty and Tyrone Woods, were killed in a mortar attack. And it's a travesty. So because then we get to this point where we're in an election year, right? Okay, Al-Qaeda's on the run. That's what Obama said during his campaign speeches. We killed Osama bin Laden, and Al-Qaeda's on the run. Al-Qaeda was not on the run. Al-Qaeda was organized into a paramilitary presence in Benghazi, and they killed 4 Americans with American weapons.
I love the notion. I mean, as soon as Trump became president, I wanted in the first 6 months of his administration to start releasing classified documents, or documents that were part of FBI investigations into many things, including Fast and Furious and IRS targeting and all these things. And I believe that, and I still say to this day, that either Trump got some bad advice or didn't even consider it. I think the midterm elections could have been very different had he released some of these documents going into the midterms. So I think that there was some malfeasance there, least of which was Benghazi.
Yeah, exactly. Because, and that's why I laugh at the American media, because the American media has been doing this process. Trump's a criminal. We're going to impeach him. We're going to put him in jail. And I'm going, where were you guys with the last administration? Because real crimes were being committed by the Obama administration.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Eric Holder is still with Fast and Furious, as a direct reference. Eric Holder is one of the few attorney generals that's actually been found in contempt of Congress. And where did Congress go with that? Did they do anything? No, they do a thing, They just kind of let him slide on out. I'm curious if anything's going to happen, because apparently, as far as Fast and Furious is concerned, they have caught the guy that killed Brian Terry.
So back to Benghazi here, Michael. The other person, I mean, we certainly know about Ambassador Stevens, but I would argue that one ambassador that I think was really quite important to what was leading up to the attack of Benghazi was Gene Kretz, who was the U.S. ambassador to Libya just prior to Ambassador Stevens. And he was actually,
you don't hear
exactly
about him, do you? Yeah,
And he was part of that whole original WikiLeaks release, the first one, where there was an awful lot of, and I would argue that even still today, those WikiLeaks files are still quite germane to where we are today.
At least germane. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, Julian Assange is actually a hero in my book. I just wish that people would realize that, because he said, got this stuff, I'm going to hang on to it, and I'm going to release it.
So where we are is, we had the Benghazi Commission. We had two of them, actually.
Yeah.
And we still don't know any of the truths, as far as I'm concerned.
I say, I counter that with the Citizens Commission on Benghazi, really, and people, if you want to really read the beginning, the during, and the aftermath of Benghazi, I highly recommend that you read. It's by Accuracy and Media, as far as like the people that put it together. But the Citizens Commission on Benghazi had people like Dennis Haney and Claire Lopez, and some real heavy hitters, as far as people that knew the intelligence community. And that's a 75-page report. It's called Betrayal in Benghazi with a colon, a dereliction of duty. And that is the report. Now, if that report had actually gotten some press, because, hey, I sent copies of that report to people that I know, like Catherine Herridge and stuff like that, And God bless Catherine. She's done some heavy lifting in the journalistic end on Benghazi. But I didn't see any Fox reports on this. Obviously, her editors didn't think it was newsworthy, and not did anyone. And really, even the Select Committee, when its report came out, they covered it for about a day as like news blips and stuff like that, filler, but they didn't really talk about it. And the Select Committee was a total disappointment, and the Citizens Commission was not even reported on.
Correct.
And that's, and the American media, when you think about it, really is like guilty of dereliction of duty.
Well, I would say there's a lot of players that were part of dereliction and duty. I mean, we've only arrested one person.
Yeah. I mean,
Abu Khattab.
We've arrested one, and the Libyan army arrested someone right on the same day. This is the irony of it. The same day that Khattab was found guilty.
Correct.
4 counts of terrorism in November of last year. The Libyan army caught in another character who's actually even a heavier hitter that we haven't heard anything about it. Where is he? Is he in the United States? Is he in Libya? Where? But we need to actually address the fact that the people that allowed Benghazi to happen, that actually actively supported the process of Benghazi happening, like Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, haven't faced anything. Hillary says, I testified for 11 hours. Well, all I can say is that the guys on, that ended up on that rooftop of that CIA annex, they were there for 13 hours. So they got to see
well said. Good counter on that one.
Yeah, I mean, come on. These people are criminals. I'll take justice in this world or justice in the next, but I really would like to have a front seat for this one,
Well, as a sidebar, how is Pat Smith doing these days?
Pat is okay. She's, her health has gone up and down, but she's actually doing pretty well for, a woman that, had her heart broken. Because Sean was her only son. Sean was her only child, period. And, it's kind of difficult when you see a family member killed by government incompetence, negligence, and continuing malfeasance. Yeah.
So we have a.
And I talked to Charles today, by the way.
Charles, did you?
Yes, I did. Charles and I are starting to keep in contact with each other. And what a grand man! I consider myself sort of a hard-boiled Christian, and Charles is sort of like what I want to grow up to be.
I get it.
Because
I have spoken to him
gracious,
myself.
cool man. He really is. I like him immensely, and we're sort of negotiating, working on something together.
Good. We have HR 2315.
That's one part of Charles and I's conversation today. Yeah, HR 2315 was sponsored by Congressman Stephen Lynch in May of last year, and what HR 23 seeks to achieve is to posthumously honor the 4 Benghazi victims, Stevens, Sean Smith, Woods and Doherty, with Congressional Gold Medals. Congressional Gold Medal is basically handed to someone that has either made an impact on history or an impact on culture. I don't agree necessarily that maybe that definition doesn't apply here, but these guys deserve to be honored. And, I've been working, obviously, since this happened, on trying to seek accountability and justice. But at the same time, I never thought about honor either, until this point.
Mm-hmm.
I found out about this in November of this year and started contacting Congressman Lynch's office. Lynch is actually, he's a Democrat out of the 8th District of Massachusetts. So I thought I would not like this guy, I mean, just looking at, the cliche of like, not that I really like Republicans any better, to be honest with you. But, I looked at his voting record. I looked at who he was. It looked like he's actually a moderate Democrat and actually has some common sense. And his premise, the letter that he created, indicating his premise for this bill was really spot on. He's just seeking to honor these guys. They said to me out of his office, hey, we know in essence what happened and who's responsible, but that's not the purpose of this. We want to honor these guys. So it looked like it was going to die in the vine because, hey, Congress had another excuse for unification because, not that I'm trying to diminish George H.W., but I'm not a huge fan. And, they took off during, of course, H.W.'s funeral. They couldn't do any work, because they were all grief-stricken, right? Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. So, it looked like it was really between that and the approaching Christmas holidays. It looked like, God, this may just die in the vine, right? And the interesting thing about this particular bill is the Congressional Gold Medal is issued by the Congressional Financial Services Office. And what they wanted, and I kind of thought this was cool, to be honest with you, they wanted 3/4 of the House. So instead of the standard, little 218 votes, they wanted 290 co-sponsors on this bill.
Mm-hmm.
Well, by December 11th, they had 298 co-sponsors. So they circumvented the incompetence of soon to be, I like this word, former House Speaker Paul Ryan, who was just not letting anything go through, was not doing his job, and God, it's so similar to his tenure as a congressman, I'm not even surprised. But they did a voice vote on the 12th, and it was unanimous.
Yay.
Can you imagine that anything coming through Congress this day qualifies for any sort of unanimous vote? That there was actually a concept considered like bipartisanship?
Remarkable.
Oh, yeah, it was remarkable. I was getting a lot of amusement out of it there because, people that have called Benghazi a walking corpse, like, Eleanor Holmes Norton, and people that have been derogatory about Benghazi, like, Maxine Waters, Adam Schiff, Shirley Jackson Lee, all these people, they signed on. I thought I was in the twilight zone.
I hear you. I do want to remind the listeners too, because from a unanimous voice vote, it is not just about Tyrone Woods and Glenn Doherty and Sean Smith, but Ambassador Stevens. When an ambassador is in country, and when they are on active duty, they have the same status as a 4-star general.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And that's a forgotten thing.
And another thing that's forgotten is that people think, this happened over in Libya. So this is, we were in their country. No, a diplomatic outpost and or a consulate. And this was a diplomatic outpost, and there's a reason behind that term. And a place like the CIA annex, that's American sovereign soil.
Correct.
So when those terrorists attacked those facilities and the personnel of those facilities, they were attacking American soil. It's just like if, a terrorist was in your backyard, folks. And that's the principle that gets forgotten. And one of the reasons they call this a diplomatic outpost is because if they called it a consulate, it was up to the State Department to maintain State Department security standards, which they did not do. So it was a convenient term to use.
There were also a lot of backstories on all of this one, and that included the no bullet security agreements that we had with Blue Mountain, I guess it was.
Yeah, Blue Mountain, British Blue Mountain, which actually hired people that were members of Ansar al-Sharia to protect America. Do you think that's a contradiction in terms? I don't know. Could be.
And so I think, what has happened here with this voice vote, unanimous voice vote, and honoring them, I think along with that, we do need to revisit some piece parts of, because I mean, very little of Benghazi was brought up during the presidential primaries and the election cycle with Hillary.
And I really thought that was missed opportunities on Trump's part. I mean, granted, he had, Pat Smith as a keynote speaker at the RNC convention and all, but, more, but that's just, again, the same thing, more attention was paid to the parents, and they are Gold Star parents also, the parents of Islamic descent, whose name escapes me at the moment. More attention was paid to those folks during the Democratic convention than Pat Smith. Pat Smith was actually belittled, and people like Chris Matthews were saying, I don't care if your son was killed, and I'm going like, the amount of vitriol and insults that we as family members have had to take from members of Congress and members of the media is truly shameful. But you know what? I'm real tough. I got a real tough rhino hide, So it really doesn't bother me. But it bothers me to see people like Pat Smith, who I know is a real good person, good human being, to be treated like that. Horrible. But
it is. It is.
But that just shows how much they have to lose and how much they are hiding still.
It's time. It's really time that we have some documents that are declassified.
Right.
If they want to, redact a few sentences here and there, fine. But I would argue that we are, in a lot of ways, not advancing. I mean, I think there are still some abuses that are going on at USAID and the State Department.
Well, you have a lot of the same personnel. I mean, that's part of the issue.
Exactly.
Not enough house was cleaned. Okay.
Exactly.
So when Trump got in there, there's still a lot of holdovers in the judicial strata of government, to the State Department, to the Justice Department, and all this sort of thing. Because I found that to be true when I was dealing with the Justice Department. I still say that when I was looking, at maybe going up to the Catala sentencing, which just didn't fly with everything going on in my life. But nonetheless, dealing with the State Department, I realized that there were a lot of people that were Obama appointees that were doing everything they could, just for me personally, just trying to get up to D.C.
Well, we're coming into a break.
Stones in my pathway. Yeah.
We're coming into a break here, Michael, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you on the other side of this break, so make sure that you stay with us.
This is Don Newen with Cowboy Logic Radio, and I carry my Sig Sauer 9mm every day. It's like a MasterCard. I never leave home without it.
And I'm glad you do, given that you work in Atlanta every day, talking about a rough place to work.
Well, Donna, I would say that most of our beloved Cowboy Logic Radio listeners not only own, but carry their weapons too. It's just the thing to do nowadays.
So do I, Don. And we need to share with our listeners a fantastic weapons company, Tar River Arms. Oh, and I should mention, they were founded by United States Marine, enough said, right? Badass-o-matic.
TarRiverArms.com. That's TAR Riverarms.com.
Tar River Arms, America's first virtual gun store, makes it easier and more comfortable than ever to purchase your firearm online. And through 3D interactive experiences, you can even view and inspect that gun you're purchasing.
They even have weekly specials that eliminate shipping and broker fees, Donna. Great guns, great prices, and great service. And remember, Tar River Arms is veteran-owned and operated.
Don, would you expect anything less from a Marine?
No, ma'am.
At TarRiverArms.com, you can search by caliber, manufacturer, and firearm types. Revolvers, semi-automatic pistols, including your SIG, Don, short-barrel rifles, long rifles, shotguns, and NFA silencers. They even have very hard-to-find products, such as the H&K MP5. Totally badass.
Tar River Arms have some of the coolest high-end tactical weapons made, all at great prices.
TarRiverArms.com, U.S. Marine owned and operated.
Hoorah!
Hey, gang, did you know that the big cellular companies fund liberal causes and candidates, not Patriot Mobile?
You're correct, Donna. Did you know that the big mobile companies have spent over $100 million to elect liberal candidates? They also fund liberal causes, agendas, and organizations such as Planned Parenthood, not Patriot Mobile.
Here's how it works. You, our beloved Cowboy Logic Radio listeners, pay your cell phone bill every month. Then Big Mobile takes your money and gives millions to liberal candidates who authorize subsidies to provide free cell service, Obama phones, to do-nothings who vote for more liberals so they can keep getting more free stuff that you pay for. Not Patriot Mobile.
So here's how you fight back. Switch to Patriot Mobile with unlimited plans starting as low as $20 a month and stop funding the big cellular companies.
Feel good about funding the right agendas. Every dollar you spend makes a statement. What message are you sending?
And it's easy to switch. You can even keep your same number, and they've got great nationwide coverage that includes Double D Ranch.
Visit them online at patriotmobile.com or call them at 1-800-A-PATRIOT.
And for any of the guilt-ridden liberals, that's 1-800-272-8746.
Created by conservatives for conservatives. Their name says it all. Patriot Mobile. Do it now. patriotmobile.com or 1-800-A-PATRIOT.
Ladies and gentlemen, what message are you sending?
And thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for hanging with us here on the Denise Simon Experience. We've been having an in-depth conversation with Michael Ingmire, who is the uncle of the sadly deceased Sean Smith of Benghazi fame. And he's, as I said, he's a busy man because you just wrote a fascinating piece over at politichicks.com about the government shutdown and members of the Congress. And I would argue that, government employees always end up kind of carrying the brunt.
Yeah.
Some of them deserved and not deserved because politics between Congress and the White House can't seem to get resolved. So I would say that one of the things whenever there's a government shutdown because of these kinds of issues and controversies, and I would also say political hostility, is that they should be suspending the actual pay of the members of Congress.
Oh yeah. I mean,
how about that?
Why is it like a clerk in the State Department or something like that is paying the price for this hubris? It's just ridiculous. And it's fun. There's a funny backstory to that article. I write for Politichicks, all right. For folks that don't know me that well, Politichicks.com. Anne Marie Mauro is Mother Courage. She'll pretty much allow me to write about just about anything I want to. So I write about politics, obviously Benghazi, and write about music and things like that. So on Friday, I had this piece that came out actually about HR 2315 in Politichicks, if people want to look it up. And then I talked to the pastor. Actually, he's not like the pastor of my church. I used to go to his church, and he actually married my wife and I. Real sharp guy. And he had me read about all this different stuff that was going on in the Wall Street Journal that day. And I was really getting kind of angry because I thought Pelosi and Schumer, as I put in the article that came out yesterday, I thought they were behaving like the Mad Red Queen and the cuckold husband.
I see that.
And I put that in the article because
yes, you did.
Right? Yeah. And the problem I have with these folks doing this government shutdown, and they're doing the shutdown because they can't agree on funding for the wall, which we need. I mean, if Nancy Pelosi has a wall around her mansion, why don't we have a wall protecting our American citizens? And, nobody is talking about what's going on in our northern border. And they should be talking about that also.
Well, and I would also argue that one thing that has left the part of the discussion, because it's always about a wall or a barrier, whatever, a fence or, whatever else we want to call them in certain piece parts.
Security.
Yeah, but we haven't talked about chain migration. That has completely left the debate. Visa overstays have left the debate. Yeah, and I would also argue that the travel ban and And so, again, I think that this Trump White House is not being advised as it needs to be, and or they have it on their desk. I'm sure that they do, because it was an issue last year, and all of a sudden it's just gone.
Yeah, exactly. Because, I think that's part of the reason we've seen an influx of people out. Because people got to consider one thing: we're only at 2 years into the Trump administration, right? And we've done actually some pretty positive things in those 2 years. And I noticed lately that there's an influx of people out. It's not because Donald Trump's this mean man. It's because he's starting to realize, I got to get rid of some of these people. They're not doing their jobs and all that. So I'm hopeful for the next 2 years. I really am. I'm hopeful that we will actually start finding, some parameters of justice. But the cynical side of me also goes like, it probably won't ever happen.
Look,
in my life.
I mean, we want some consequences, and I don't care who it falls upon. I mean, I've often argued that the crazy things that we have going on in our government these days, and the things that we're finding out as things kind of creep back from history, doesn't really separate us from any other corrupt, even third world country and their leadership.
Right.
So,
right.
But
I also counter that we've had more progression in this country as far as our economics and our jobs, growth and things like that in the past 2 years than we did in the previous 24.
Exactly.
And I'm excited about that. And see, the problem I'm having with the American media is I think they're totally operating without any sort of journalistic principles whatsoever. And I think it's laughable, and of course I detailed this in the article, that they call Trump's going to be impeached. Trump's a criminal. We need to throw him in jail and throw all these epithets out here, and not consider the fact that they had a truly criminal, and I'm talking about put him in jail for the rest of his life, criminal, in Barack Hussein Obama. Because, where were you guys during Benghazi? Where were you guys during Fast and Furious? When people like myself are targeted, by the IRS, where are you?
Exactly. And, least of which, I haven't seen the Democrats offer one thing to cure Obamacare. Obviously, the repeal and replace failed, and we know why. But here's the deal. They made a mistake. Again, there was a colossal mistake leading into that vote. And I believe that there should have been a television documentary on what led on how we got to a only Democrat vote that gave us Obamacare in the first place.
Right, exactly. And the whole thing about it, and why did the United States Congress and the current president of the United States at that point, practice constitutional malpractice? Why was that allowed? The American people need to start waking up and paying attention. If you want something done, start calling. It's amazing what happens with bills. It's amazing what happens with points of reference when people in masse start calling and shutting down the voicemails and the emails of these folks. And we all are responsible for our own freedom. It's not something that freedom is a responsibility. It's not necessarily just a right.
In order to preserve it, that's exactly right. And I would say that, Michael, we have too many unanswered issues, and with one issue, you find so many more. Remember we have the slush fund of the members of Congress that paid off staffers because of sexual predatory behavior.
Right. But we'll spend millions of dollars on somebody like Ken Starr to investigate a blue dress. You know what I'm saying? And that's the problem I'm having. I really truly believe that the president needs to go outside of the Justice Department and outside of the State Department and all, attached bodies that are being accused of various things, and have a special prosecutor. Somebody that has more courage than Ken Starr.
It's really quite fascinating too that so much of the headlines was consumed with the death of Jamal Khashoggi.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is, nobody in the media and nobody in government is turning around and saying, "Hey, Washington Post, you knew that this cat was bad news. You knew that this cat was part of the Qatari Muslim Brotherhood kind of operation." Every operative that's in the United States for one reason or another from a foreign land, if they want to operate undercover here, the first thing that they do is get a job in journalism.
Sure, exactly.
And it's a fake job. And the Washington Post knew that.
Yeah, well, what does they say? Government was the last refuge of scoundrels. I counter that perhaps the media is one of the second to the last refuge for criminals, for terrorists.
Yes.
And that's a shame. What happened? How do we let that go, folks?
And so what we ended up with was a complete breakdown in, I would say, getting all the real truths out. We still don't even know all the real truths on all of the machinery that led up to the whole crisis of the Brett Kavanaugh hearings, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Without a doubt.
Senator Grassley referred some of those people that lied under oath to the Justice Department. Okay, where are we with those, correct?
Yeah, exactly. And, the thing about it, and this is the irony, this week we shut down, basically, we decided, we're going to shut down the government, and we shut down because of border security. And at the same time, you have a corporal, a police officer, Corporal Ronell Singh, right, out of the West Coast, who's killed by a guy that, oh my God, we deported a few times. Oh my God, he's a gang member. Oh my God, he's got a criminal record. We need to basically embrace him into this country.
Yeah, and he was protected by a sanctuary city and sanctuary state.
Yeah, and like I said in this article, and it's straight up. Sanctuary cities do not protect anybody but the criminal. They do not protect anybody that's the hard-working, under the wire, illegal immigrant. No, they protect the criminal. And this guy...
And I haven't heard any outrage from Cory Booker or Kamala Harris
or Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer, because this guy is like the American story. He was a legal immigrant from Fiji, and he becomes a police officer. He has a lovely wife. He has a good relationship, has a 5-month-old son that will never know his dad, and this guy was the American story. He was a legal immigrant who was the pinnacle of what I really want to see it come to this country from other countries,
Exactly.
And he's murdered by an illegal immigrant. Isn't that horrific? And where is the outrage in Congress? And where is the outrage of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and these sort of, stupid people? My God, we have people in... Nancy Pelosi's got the intellect of a small round soap dish, okay? But she has a lot of animal cunning, and she gets her agenda across. And it's scary that they're even considering putting her in that speaker's chair. That kind of looks like that's a given, unfortunately.
I agree with you.
My God, she is the Mad Red Queen, from Alice in Wonderland.
And as speaker, I would argue that somebody ought to go back and look at her days as the former speaker and what we got, right?
Yeah, why don't we look at the fact that Nancy Pelosi was the only House Speaker in American history who had her own taxpayer-paid-for private plane. That you and I, folks, paid for Nancy's champagne and strawberries. Or chocolate-covered strawberries, granted,
Wasn't she excommunicated from the Catholic Church, too?
Yeah, I think she was. I think they said, Nancy, you got to get out of here. We don't have a great rep, but you especially don't have a great rep. So, yeah, they excommunicated her. That's what I'm hearing, at least.
And so I'm waiting for you, Mr. Michael, to write a piece over at the Hill or the Washington Post that says, okay, if Miss Pelosi becomes the new speaker, shall we compare where she's going to take us as where she did take us in her former speaker role? Are you going to do that one?
It's a possibility. Nancy's starting to really pee me off, so hey, you never know. You never know. The next piece I'm writing is actually going to be a music piece, but I like I said, I got so irate about what was going on with the shutdown and these people's commentary that I wrote a piece in about 3 hours, and it was printed the next day because my editor was going, yes, this is current. My God, so it worked.
And the other one that we're leaving out of the whole realm is Chuck Schumer.
Oh, Chuck, the cuckold husband.
Yeah, there's plenty to write on him, right?
Oh yeah, there's plenty to write on Chuck, and Chuck said that illegal. He said, I love the fact that social media does bring these things up. And there's a video of Chuck from a few years back talking about illegal immigration and how it's illegal. And that, we can't accept this. And I'm going, what happened? Who bought you off, No, Chuck is just totally, he's a disgusting creature. I mean, that's the only thing I can say about Schumer, I can
So you said you were positive about, you said you were positive about 2019. What do you have, are you getting some good vibes on what 2019 may bring us? No, I'm just trying to be hopeful as a human being. I mean, if I'm really looking out at what's out here, no, I'm sorry, but as a human being seeking a better year than 2018, I'll take any point of light I can get. All right, so are you expecting the Mueller report to come out this spring or no? Oh God, the Mueller report. What a waste of my money and your money. Okay. Huh? And what about the consequences for Andrew McCabe and Peter Strzok and Lisa Page? Any consequence there? Oh, please. No? I find the problem with Washington is that they have so many committees and so many reports that it's just amazing that they actually can tie their shoes. It's amazing that they remember how to breathe. It's just, that's the purpose of these guys. They want to have committees. They want to have committees. They want to have funding for the committees so that we can find out what happened and issue a report and then look like we're doing our job. But they don't do their jobs. Has anybody out there, have you read Jason Chaffetz's book, The Deep State? I haven't. I have not, however. I've got 40 books in front of it. I highly recommend it. In fact, I may even do a review of it. I like it so much. Because, it's interesting. I faced the deep state of America when I started trying to find out what happened in Benghazi, okay? And Jason Chaffetz talks about being in Benghazi a month afterwards, right? And actually being shadowed by a State Department lawyer who he gets uncomfortable with. Because this guy's a Freedom of Information Act lawyer, and he's basically acting, in essence, as Jason's minder, right? So finally they get this guy thrown out because they find out he doesn't have the appropriate security clearance, right? But he's looking at this guy and he said, God, this is the deep state. This is the deep state in front of me. I've never seen this before, but this is it. And that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with the deeply entrenched deep state of people that have been, bilking and ripping off and cheating and lying to the American people for decades now. And for people to expect that, hey, we're going to wave a magic wand, we're going to have somebody that's an outsider like Trump come in and change the process overnight, it's not going to happen. Because these guys have technicals that are just really, really long. Well, another one that blows the whistle is Peter Schweitzer. And we still have the issues with the Clinton Foundation and Uranium One.
Oh, yeah.
And I am as disappointed in this Justice Department, irrespective of where Jeff Sessions was or is.
Yeah.
But I mean, it doesn't matter because, I mean, there are all these deputy attorney generals. I mean, so where are we? Are we, we've got people acting in these roles, including the Department of Defense.
Well, that's the issue right there. They need to stop acting and start participating. You know, we need to get rid of some people still, because there are people that are just like I said, that it's the background of things. You know, that's one of the reasons that, for example, going back to Benghazi, that when it's gone to the court system, we've been left wanting as far as any sort of justice. You know, and these are judges that are appointed by formerly, Barack Obama, that are not giving us the justice that we need, that are giving us justice by agenda.
And just because these people have left government, we have something called clawback. And I would argue that, when you've got Koskinen or Lois Lerner at the IRS, just because they've resigned doesn't mean that there shouldn't be some kind of a consequence, correct?
Right, exactly. I mean, Lois Lerner should go to jail, She should be in jail. She should be serving time in jail. If you or I had done some of these things, we would be in jail. We would be eating, jailhouse bologna sandwiches.
I think between you and me and a few others, the Dennis Haney's and a few others, I think that we ought to start making some new official demands, maybe getting on the White House website petitions and issue some petitions that we want some of these documents declassified.
Well, I had a petition that I created at whitehouse.gov that just died on the vine, that I wanted all, pertinent, Hillary Clinton emails released. I wanted all Benghazi documents released. I wanted them actually released on the 6th anniversary. I thought that, surely Trump will buy into this, but, of course nobody did. And we have to do it en masse, because if it's just a group of 10, 20 people, they're going to go these are, tin hats and all those, derogatory terms that they throw at conservatives. Well, if you got a few thousand people, like I said, if you're not happy with government, shut their voicemails down, shut their emails down. Let them know, because the more you get out there and you speak up and stand up, the more that will be done. And we need to do it in mass quantities of people.
And two others that I would argue that we have since forgotten is all the declassify all the documents on how we traded the Guantanamo 5, if you will, for Bo Bergdahl. And then one more thing. What about how the backstory came with the side deals on the Iranian nuclear deal?
Right. Well, I'm starting to hear rumblings that there's certain monies that Barack Obama is supposed to pay back. Now, I don't know if that's going to be a reality, and that's not going to resolve the issue. Because we need, paying money back is just a cheap way of basically avoiding consequences sometimes. So. Excuse me. Yeah, we do need the backstories in this stuff. We do need to know why Hillary Clinton is not wearing orange. Hillary looks great in orange, and I think it should be her uniform color. And I think Barack would look good in orange too. So let's just join them together.
Susan Rice, Samantha Power.
Yeah, Susan Rice, who I always called the taxpayer-paid liar. Susan Rice actually went on. But less than a week after the Benghazi attacks, goes on 5 Sunday talk shows and says, it was a video. It was a video. Hey, I watched that video. It's like sub-Barat quality. It was a parody. It was a comedy. And they said that this video caused the Benghazi attack? Yeah. So, Susan Rice, who's now the Netflix CEO.
Imagine.
By the way, folks. And, hey, if you got a Netflix account and you're a conservative, you need to look in the mirror and ask yourself why.
Well, Mr. Michael Ingmire, thanks for being so busy here in over the holiday season. I mean, you and I have taken a big, huge trip down memory lane, but I would argue some of this memory lane stuff is still quite germane and can be used for our political benefit and the Trump administration political benefit. So I'm not willing to just say, well, that, what is it? That was so yesterday. We're way beyond all that. No, we're not.
No,
not by a long stretch.
The process of justice denied anywhere is justice denied everywhere, to paraphrase Martin Luther King.
There you go.
Okay? And the whole thing about it, if you deny justice and say that, it happened years ago, it's not important, hey, folks, then it's just going to happen again. And what's the definition of insanity, right?
Thank you for being with us on the Denise Simon Experience. And ladies and gentlemen, I invite you to travel on over to politichicks.com because Michael's doing some good work over there. Let's see if we can't push forward some of these declassifications of some of these documents. Let's remember history.
Yeah, and Dinesh D'Souza, just on a parting note, has said that if PSD-11 is released, President Trump will win the 2020 election hands down. So push for that, folks, because that'll show the true heart of darkness that was Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton.
I like it. It's been a real pleasure, Michael, having you with us on the Denise Simon Experience. I'm very happy that you reached out. We've got we still have open wounds here, and we would certainly like some, what do they say, closure? So travel on over to politichicks.com.
The heck with closure. I want justice.
There you go. Well, thanks for being with us on the Denise Simon Experience, and Happy New Year. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been fun being with you. So we'll see you again next time.
Hey, Donna, Cowboy Logic Radio listeners love law enforcement.
That's right, Don. And Charity Magnets designs and produces beautiful, high-quality products for law enforcement supporters and enthusiasts.
They've got very impressive honor badge car magnets.
CharityMagnets.com.
They've got license plate honor badges.
CharityMagnets.com.
They've got cool keychains and license plate frames.
CharityMagnets.com. I'm on their website right now, and this is my favorite, the Honor Badge dog tag. Look at that little doggy with the dog tag. He's so cute.
Donna, we're trying to do an ad read, and you're playing around on their website, which happens to be CharityMagnets.com.
But he's so cute.
Donna.
Okay. Hey, this is huge, too. For each sale, a donation will be made to Cops for Kids with Cancer. Cops for Kids with Cancer has given more than $2.5 million in donations. Yes.
Become a Blue Honor Foundation member today. Like Donna is doing right now, go to CharityMagnets.com.
But he's so cute. All right, use the promo code MOJO for $5 off any purchase. I know you all love and support our brave law enforcement professionals and their families. Show your support today by going to CharityMagnets.com and check out that little puppy. He's so cute. Hey, Don, can we go to the pound, get another rescue dog, please? Pretty
No,
please?
Donna, no. 5 rescue dogs are enough, but I'm going to CharityMagnets.com, and I'm making some purchases right now.
Become a Blue Honor Foundation member today. Enter MOJO at checkout and get $5 off. CharityMagnets.com.